Welcome to our class today. We are going to be working on the legs and the hip rotator. So there's this excellent sequence that we're going to work on today that's going to help you move the hip rotators and get some flexibility and strength there. And we're also going to do a sequence before that where we're just working on strengthening the legs and lengthening the muscles. So I hope that you find the sequence useful. You can do it. It's hopefully under 30 minutes so that you can do it every day for incorporate it into your practice and allow more movement around the hips and more strength in the legs. So usually we go in depth in looking at a certain aspect of pose, and this will be more of a sequence that you can use in your practice. So I hope you enjoy it. If you have any questions about last week's class, we worked on Parsva, Konasana, let me know. You can send it on the comments. With any requests or questions. So let's find a comfortable sitting position. And first we'll talk about the way that we approach these poses will be always keeping that sense of softness and release in the eyes, the ears, and the throat. So we start with that. So sit in a comfortable position, take a deep breath through the nose and out through the nose. And soften the eyes, the ears, and the throat so that your yoga practice is also a training of your mind. You can ask, well, why is it a training of the mind? Because when you look at it outwardly, it's a wonderful physical exercise that really helps the body, alleviates pains in some instances, it helps with this physical shape. But also at the same time, we're literally training the mind. And this is a very high level, very, very, very high level and non-technical explanation of the way that working a certain way in your yoga practice trains the mind. So this is at its most gross physical level, and gross meaning physical versus more subtle. And so in the muscle fibers, you have these very intelligent hybrid muscle and nerve ending cells. And these cells store lots of information in the fibers of your muscles, and it communicates that information through your nervous system to your brain. And so it's an incredible way of looking at this. So when you are lengthening your muscles, or let's just say stretching, these cells remember the amount of flexibility that you may have, or the amount of flexibility that it remembers that you have. And so, it'll prevent very sudden movements where you move something that may not have that range of movement. And so that cell remembers, and it communicates to the brain, okay, how far can I move this? How far can I move this? How far can I move this? And the brain gives permission. Okay, very high level review. However, when you work with yoga and you breathe and you release the eyes, the ears, and the throat, and you allow yourself to have that place where you can breathe freely in the pose, which is the number one way to know if you're about to get injured or not, is how steady, how free is your breath. And so this information exchange is constantly going on between muscle and between the intelligence in the brain, telling it how much and how far it can go. So if you release the tension, you release the initial, holding pattern of that muscle, you can start training the mind to say, I can give it another 1/8 of an inch. I can allow that muscle fiber to release more. And so it's a constant training of the mind in that way. And then beyond that, there are many more subtle aspects of training the mind But on this, the way that we practice, it's so important to practice in the way that we understand this relationship between actually what's going on in your mind and how it's going to affect how the flexibility that you can have. So if you also the way that you speak about your leg or about this arm or about this hand, this hand has always been inflexible and it has no flexibility. That's another way of training your mind. And so the way that you speak about how you can approach the pose will also affect your practice. So I think it's so important to start out by softening the eyes, the ears, the throat, releasing any tension in the back of the head, and then exploring the pose not from a place of I am tight. It's maybe that muscle is tight. Maybe there's a memory of that muscle being tight, but every day in your practice, you start new and you decide how far you can explore that muscle and how much you can bring that awareness to the muscle and start training the mind in that way. So it's pretty fun. And then other aspects of training the mind, you start really training the mind to see maybe what is this stillness that we can talk about, or this beauty, or lack of judgment. Where is this place that we can go where it's like that? And I think the best way to understand it is that you already have it, all that beauty, that stillness, that place of non-judgment. You have it. You just, for some reason, we don't see it. And so how to come to that place where you're training the mind to see that beauty of yourself. So with this intro, let's start looking at the legs, and let's approach our practice from that place of softening the eyes, the ears, and the throat, and understanding that it is a training of the mind, whatever you do, especially your yoga practice. And so let's incorporate that into the practice today. Okay, so we're going to start out by working on the legs, and we're going to do a few very simple exercises that if you do them every morning, it creates an enormous different change and difference in your practice. So we're going to start out with the march. And I used to do this a lot in my classes, and so I'm going to show you how we start this. So hands out at a 90-degree angle. And here I'm going to make sure that I'm not arching my back. So I'm tucking the pelvis so that I can have the normal curve of my back. If I already have a more tucked body, then I'm going to allow it to, the normal curve of the spine to stand. Okay, so here we are. And then feet on the ground, very, very spread toes, very active legs. And we're going to lift the knee here. Okay, so when I lift the knee, I make sure I'm not bending the bottom knee. And most importantly, I'm not bringing the chest forward. So keep the chest back as we bring the leg up. So we can do maybe 3 sets of 10 of these with a forward bend in between. And the way I like to do the forward bend is using a reverse chair so that I get a lot of work on my ankles. Okay, so I grab a chair. If you don't have a chair, that's totally fine. You can just do the forward bend without it. But if you do have a chair, it's a nice way of incorporating stretch to the back of your legs. And it's also a good idea to put a little blanket on the chair at first, because it can be quite harsh on your feet. Okay, so there we go. So we'll do 1 set of 10. Okay, so hands in a 90-degree angle, keep that chest lifted, making sure that I'm not curling the chest. And I bring the legs up too. Like this. Okay, so you can do this. We said we would do a set of 10, and then you come to a chair here, And you can put the whole foot on the chair or just half of your foot on the chair, however you can do this, and come down, keeping the back straight, so without rounding the back. Come down, really lifting the sit bones up and resting on the chair. And coming here and being onto the wall like this is a perfect place to start also. So you may want to move it back a bit and working on the back of the leg. So breathe as you feel the heels, the back of the leg open. Soften the eyes, the ears, and the throat. And as you're able to, by stretching the back of the leg, not by rounding the back, come down. And then inhale, exhale, come up. And here you would repeat a few more sets of this work. Really keeping that bottom leg straight, lifting the chest. So this is a great place to start strengthening the legs, changing the strength of your feet, stretching the back of your leg. It's a really great exercise. It's also wonderful for constipation and for getting digestion moving. Please do it not on a full stomach, but really great pose. Okay, second, we're going to work on lateral lifts. So here, I bring the chair here, or I can hold on to the wall, and I'm going to bring my leg up and bring it down slowly. So we'll do 10 of these, softening the eyes, the ears, and throat, even when we're moving a little bit faster. Okay, and the other side. Again, keeping the bottom leg very straight without bending that knee of the bottom leg. We're going to lift 10 times. Okay, and then the last one of this set is I have the chair in front of me, and I could also have a counter. And let's see if I have enough room here. Okay, so then come to the chair where you're at a 90-degree angle here, and hands on the chair. And then I bring my leg back. So we'll do 10 of these. And here, make sure that this hip is not opening as I come up, that I keep this hip parallel with the ground. Okay, and second side. And 10. All right. So the way that we can work the sequence is you can do 10 and stand on the chair, 10 lateral lifts, do this pose in between each and do 3 sets. So 30 lifts on each side on each of the 3 poses. And in between, you can spend about a minute here or 30 seconds stretching the back of your leg. Okay, so the sequence again is 10 lifts. Once you're finished with the lifts, then come to the chair and stretch out the back of your legs. Then you can use a wall, 10 of these lateral lifts. Okay, 10 of these. You would do all 10 on each side. Come back to your chair and breathe. Inhale. So here you can be at the wall or you can come down. And please use the chair according to how deep you want to go into the calf stretch. And lastly, you can use a wall here. Use a wall, and you would do 10 on one side, 10 on the left side. Okay, and then come up and finish with 30 seconds to a minute of your forward bend. All right. Okay, so that's a really great little sequence to practice to start getting the legs stronger and to really work these hip rotators. So you're really strengthening the hip rotators and you're lifting. So it's a really, really great sequence to add, especially as here in California, we're going into the fall and winter season. You may be more indoors and outdoors, but it's a great practice to have all year round. All right. So after we finish our standing sequence, we're going to work on a few poses in the ground, and then we're going to start working on those hip rotators. Sorry, I was trying to read a comment, but I can't read it. Okay, so let's look at the hip rotators. Okay, so come to a laying down position here. And we're going to do these. We'll work the abs, the legs, the rotators, and the hamstrings. So they're really great. And we're going to work with that theme that we had introduced in the beginning of class, where we're looking at softening the eyes, the ears, and the throat. We're looking at the freedom of the breath. So how free is your breath? So that when you do this, you realize I have a holding pattern. Maybe I tighten one side of my abdomen. Maybe I tighten my groins when I try to do this. And sometimes the lower back. So this is where I feel pain. So starting to undo all those knots that we've acquired throughout our lives and our bodies. And receive a nice physical benefit too from the work. So softening the eyes, the ears, and the throat. Keep the left leg planted into the wall. So keep that contact between left leg and wall. Make the left leg very firm. So hug the muscles to the bone. Inhale. As you exhale, bring the right leg towards your chest. And make sure that you are not grabbing near the knee. You can grab it on the hamstring here or on the calf or on the shin. And we're going to do 10 of these. So 1, soften the eyes, ears, and throat. The first few, you may feel like you're bringing tension to the ears and to the head, and then you can do them slower. 5. Okay, and 9, with one more. 10. Okay, soften eyes, ears, and throat. Really soften the opposite groin, and then you'll see that you can bring this leg further. Same thing on the other side. This time we're going to put the right leg into the wall. Really press that right leg into the wall, spread the toes, and we're going to bring the left leg to the chest. And we'll do that 10 times. Keeping the contact of the right leg to the wall. Soften eyes, ears, and throat. And if you can't soften the eyes and ears and throat, make them very tight and hold your breath. And then you'll start learning, okay, this is really holding my breath to the max. And so I start breathing, giving one little breath, and then release the tightness in the eye just a little bit. And as you practice this, you can release more and more and more. Okay. So when we do these reps in the beginning, when there's a lot of tightness in the hips and in the legs, and we repeat the pose more often, it starts sending that message from the fibers and the muscles, from those smart cells, nerve cells. Start allowing them to trust that you can. Maybe this was what you have in that stored memory of how far you can lengthen the muscle, but slowly you can say, okay, releasing the groin, releasing everything else that's tight, the eyes, ears, and throat. Okay, there is a little more room to lengthen those muscle fibers. Okay, so slowly training the mind in that way, not all at once. And the last one that we will do in this sequence before we move on to the hip rotators is this half happy baby pose where we bring the leg here. I'm going to bring my right leg up and the right hand. I'm going to bring the right hand to the center of the body, okay, to the inside of my leg. And I'm going to grab at the outside of my foot like this. And then I bring the leg up. Okay, so let's do that with a belt in case this is not accessible. So then go ahead and grab a belt or a towel, whatever you have. And you can push the belt this way so that you're grabbing from the outside. Okay, so even if it's here, that's fine. And I want to put the soles of the foot or the sole of this foot pointed towards the ceiling. Okay, so maybe your pose is here still. Maybe we can go ahead and straighten the leg that's against the wall, very, 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 very straight. Make these muscles active so that they're hugging the bone. And when you do that, check if you're tightening the eyes, the ears, and the throat. And then here we are. So here initially, it's more of a work of your arms. Okay, so pretending there's a huge elephant right in the middle of your thigh here, pressing it down towards the floor. Okay, and then bring the leg down. So we'll do 5 of these on each side, making sure you're not tightening the eyes, the ears, and the throat. And you can do 10 or however, after you finish with the whole sequence, you can do 3 sets of 10 each on the 3 poses. Okay. Here. And these are very quick without much time to sit, breathe, and hold the pose. Okay, so you can practice both ways. You can do the last session where you sit, breathe, and hold. So here is how I would do it with a belt. If I need more room here, if I can't, I can't reach the foot yet, this is a great way to do it. So make sure the hand comes in from the inside and then grabs these belts here on the outside. Okay, even if it's here, however it is that you can, in the beginning, this leg may lift off the floor too. So you can practice either. You can practice straightening the opposite leg and really making the middle of the thigh heavy. Or you can leave this leg a little bit less straight and you can really work on this one. Okay, and eventually we bring the opposite leg, we make it very, very heavy here. We make it very straight and active. And then you can work on bringing this leg down, which at first it's a battle. It's tight. Everything grips. Eventually you start discovering if I only remove, just like we did last week, if you want to take a look at that video, that was really the same concept here, so that you're not loading the head of the femur. You're really working from the middle of the thigh. So remove the load from this groin, remove the load from the head of the femur, the grip here. So soften the eyes, ears, throat, soften this grip so it's not puffing out. And then start bringing the foot back by maintaining this head of the femur area soft. So remove the grip. And if you don't understand that doesn't happen for you, tighten the head of the femur, tighten your glutes and tighten the head of the femur. Make this area very hard and tight. And then release it.
So tighten it even more and then release it just a bit. And see, when you release, you can come down from a softness rather from, a yanking or force. So then you would do this 5 times again, using your belt or not, softening the eyes, the ears, and the throat. And when you're finished, go ahead and roll to the right and come up.
Okay. Okay. Now that we're towards the end of the class, we have about 7 minutes left. We're going to work on the third and last sequence for today. So we have the standing sequence that brings a little more cardio and strength, starts movement around the head of the femur. We had a laying down sequence where we can really lengthen the hamstrings and start using the idea of removing the load from this circumference here, the head of the femur in there, removing the grip and the load there. So softening the head of the femur so that we can have more space to bring the leg back. So working with that, we have those two pose little laying down sequence. And now we're going to look at the rotators and how we can work on this incredible sequence to do that. So let's do that together right now. For this sequence, I do recommend using a block. Okay. If you don't have a block, a nice firm bolster is really great also. So we're going to start out here sitting in Dandasana. Okay, so it's this pose here. So if it's difficult to sit here without having the back sort of slump back or round, I should say, it's a better way to describe that. Grab a block or a blanket and sit on that block here. Okay, this will just give you more space here and less pain in the back. Okay, so the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to use my block, and let's give you a better angle here. You can also sit against the wall. If sitting for a long time, your back is developing that strength and still gets a little bit tired, so you can use a wall here. So come here to that sitting position and put this block here in the middle. I'm going to use my right leg first. I'm going to bend the right leg, and I'm going to bring the right leg out so that I have a 90-degree angle with my leg here. And then I'm going to support it on a block. And this is, I'm not just supporting it like this. I'm using this part of the block to support my knee. Okay, very important. You may need 2 blocks here, and that's fine. That's how we all start. Eventually you practice and the rotators start releasing, and you can bring the leg further. So never ever force this knee down. Make sure you have a full, I'm going to show you the side view in just a sec, the 90-degree angle, and that your heel is on the floor here. Okay, and then you inhale, exhale. If you can rotate it down. So we're not bringing the knee, we're rotating this part of the hip. If your hip allows you to rotate a little bit more and the knee comes down, then you can bring the knee down. However, never accept any pain in the knee. If there's any pain in the knee, bring it back up immediately. Okay, so this is not a place where you can tolerate any pain in the knee. So if the rotators will rotate, then you can come down further. If they're not cooperating today for some reason, then that's fine. Okay, so if the hip rotators are cooperating, then you can come down. But this is never a forced action. So you never put any of that pressure on the knee. It's actually the work of the hip rotators. And I can tell that my right sit bone is trying to lift a little bit. So I should, make sure both sit bones are in the ground here and bring the knee up a bit. Okay. To come out of this pose, it's the most important part. we're going to make sure that I don't come out from here. What I have to do is I have to lift the knee, rotate my leg as far out as it will go. Then very carefully straighten it. Take a minute, breathe, and come back to the center. Okay, so let's try that on the second side. So I come here, I'm sitting down in Dandasana. I'm doing my left side now. Make sure I have my block or my bolster, some kind of a height to support the knee. I bring the knee out at a 90-degree angle. So I don't want it closed and I don't want it way open. Okay, 90 degrees, just like a square. Okay, and then if my hip lifts a little bit off of the ground, if it's a little lighter than the other side, that's okay, just as long as I'm not here. If I'm here, then I just want to add more height here, right? So I would add, double the height here. Okay, and then slowly, as I develop the weight, this ability to rotate here, right? So it's not pushing the knee down while this stays stuck. It's allowing this to rotate so that I can bring the knee down. And here if I'm slumping, add some height there underneath my sit bones or sit against the wall, keeping this leg active and straight. And then carefully move those rotators. And then to come up, remember, I can help my knee, but I move all the way around. And then I straighten the leg very carefully and, thinking about it and breathing. So I inhale and I breathe out as I come out so that I don't injure the knee. Okay. And then we'll do round 2 of this, which you can hold it anywhere from 30 seconds, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, all the way up to a 5-minute hold if you'd like. So here, again, make sure that you have that 90-degree angle. And you would put your timer and do it. Holding onto this may sometimes cause a little bit of strain in the neck. It will also strengthen the neck, but you don't want to strain it. So make sure that you have either a couch back here or a wall if it is causing your neck to talk to you. And then see how much I can rotate this down, lengthening the knee. So if I had somebody holding my knee, pulling it towards me, I'm going to lengthen it and try to push my knee away. So that's what I work on, not in necessarily bringing the knee down, but lengthening the knee towards the wall, bringing it down, and then to come out, I rotate, come out, same thing on this side. I set up my block here, come down, and this is 90-degree angle. Then I can come down a little more, lengthening that knee. And then checking, don't leave the knee like this unsupported. Make sure that it's always supported if you, right? And a little bit of a lift is fine. Go ahead and turn it all the way around. Straighten the knee. And for the last pose of this sequence, we're going to lay back down all the way. So first, I make sure I set up a block there on my knee. And I lay down completely. And then I can tuck here. I can really release any tension around the head of the femur with my breath, my intention, the brain communication here. And if I can't establish that softness here, I make it tighter. So I tighten everything and then I release, and then I tighten everything and I release. I can tighten my glutes, which are not the head of the femur, but anyway, I can tighten just the head of the femur, my abs, and then release. And I do this a few times until I can finally access, the deep groin muscles that I tend to grip. Release.
And then I can have someone help me, or I can get up and put my blocks in the right place. Bring the leg down a little bit more. When I'm ready, I bring it all the way around and I straighten it and I bring it to center, and I'll show you the very last pose that we'll do. I can set the block there to begin with so that I'm not putting any strain on that knee. And here I'm going to lay all the way down. So the opposite leg is straight. This is at a 90-degree angle with the heel on the floor. Okay, so I'm working on rotating the hip rotators there. And I can spend a minute, 30 seconds on each side, making sure that when I lower that knee, I am inhaling, making the eyes, the ears, and the throat soft. And I am transferring that softness into the head of the femur, where I can allow it to rotate and lengthen the knee and allow the knee to descend. So I'm never pushing the knee down. Very important. And here, if I feel myself pushing the knee down, I'll stop. I'll lengthen. I'll soften the head of the femur and lengthen so that it can come down on its own. Soften the belly and go ahead and rotate out and come up. Okay, and then roll to the right to come up. Okay, so that was the hip rotator work. It's a very powerful sequence. It's nice if it's before you can work a little bit on the hip rotators, doing the lifts and the other work that we did. But it's a really wonderful, amazing sequence, and I hope that you enjoy it. Make sure that you do it always with that big number one rule of never doing the hip rotator work if there's any pain on the outside or anywhere around the knee. If there is, step back a little bit from the work. I hope this was a good class for you. See you next week. Let me know if there's any questions or requests in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Thank you.